It's April. It's a new beginning, and we are so far apart. Guess what? We can take our mask off and just talk to you finally. It seems like we're finally getting there.
Yeah, you can't take the mask off of Superman, but you can take the mask off of Pete and Claudine.
All right. Well, I'm Claudine Ewing, and he is
Pete Gallivan.
Welcome to commUNITY.
Well, this month on commUNITY, we are tackling a really wide-ranging subject.
We really are.
Diversity.
Diversity and inclusion are so important, and joining us right now is the Chief Diversity Officer for the City of Buffalo, Shatora Donovan.
We focus a lot on diversifying the workforce for the City of Buffalo. So we have about 3,500 employees, and that's everything from police and fire to DPW to, people white-collar workers who work in City Hall. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and having those uncomfortable conversations, because that's where the magic happens, that's where the growth is.
In the last year or so, we have kind of been thrust into the reality that it's so much more than just who you hire and making sure you have each type of slot filled.
Yeah, that's huge. Diversity is how you bring people to the table. It's the purpose behind why you're being inclusive. In the city, we go out and we want to make sure that the people who work for the City of Buffalo reflect the people who live in the City of Buffalo. And what that does is make sure that everybody has a quality of life where they can live well.
Every organization should be concerned about having a diversified workforce.
Yes.
I mean, it's not to say you have to have all blacks or all whites or all Latinos or all Asians, but it needs to be reflected in some way.
Data shows that diverse workplaces are more enjoyable. You keep your employees around longer, more retention. You increase the bottom line. So there's so many awesome reasons for having a diverse workforce. My reason, above and beyond everything, is that creative piece, right? You want to bring people to the table so that they can really be engaged in what you're trying to accomplish. We know more and more people are taking jobs because of what it means to them, their purpose. And so when you can give people that purpose, they're going to stick around and do really good work for you.
A lot of people think of diversity and in the workforce as just giving everyone equal opportunities. But it's really about strengthening your understanding of your community.
Yeah, 100%. We learn so much from each other. I remember when the whole "okay boomer" kind of insult came out, and I wrote an email to the high-level staff about, generational slights. They're not okay either, because there's so much that we glean from each other's experience and perspectives. And each generation, what makes that a generation is really that coming of age experience.
There's also a difference between diversity and inclusion.
100%. Diversity doesn't work without inclusion. Diversity works when you understand what your biases are and you can mitigate them and say, okay, I might be biased towards this one group of people, so let me go out of my way to get to know this other group of people and bring them to the table, because I'm missing so much if I don't do that. So that's where that inclusion comes in, Claudine. You really need to bring people to the table and then be quiet. You have to be quiet and let them talk.
And listening is so important.
Most recently, the incident at 97 Rock, it's kind of forced us to address this and to start discussing. So negatives can and should turn into positives.
It's an opportunity to change and grow, right? So the problem is that we're never really going to know absolutely everything about every culture, about every background. That's not going to happen. But when we realize that perhaps because we don't know everything, we should stop, pause, and take a step back before we speak, before we act, maybe before we write that performance review, before we give that promotion. We need to evaluate what our motivations are. The status quo is easy to go with if, again, you have a homogenous group of people around you who say, oh, we're good, we're great, everything's fine, because this is how we've always done them. And if you find yourself, especially in a corporate environment, saying, well, we do things like this because it's how we've always done them, I can guarantee you've got some problems in your organization.
Diversity matters. Diversity matters. Why? Because each individual matters.
Yes. It's really easy to not understand that diversity matters because when we're at home, right, we're around people who look like us, who talk like us, who think like us, and who have a same economic background as we do. And so you think everybody is like you, right? I have the pleasure of having practiced immigration law in the past. And so when you deeply understand what people go through, not only in your own backyard, but across the globe, you see things differently. What we can keep doing is what we are doing, is bringing light to the issues, talking about them. And the one thing I encourage everybody to do is take out of your vocabulary things like I'm colorblind or I'm erasing bias or those phrases that eliminate other people's experience, right? What we can all do is understand that I don't care who you are, you're biased. That's what science tells us. You have to be biased in order to survive in this world.
Diversity is something that needs to be instilled much earlier than when someone gets to the workforce, and that is the focus of community builder KENDRA Brim's new job.
Last summer, when we saw this big social unrest, I decided that I needed to do something.
And so she left her job in the health insurance field and turned to her alma mater, Nardin Academy.
I'm very much connected to Nardin Academy, have always been. I'm an alum of Nardin. I have been a part of the alumni events. And so I wanted to, and I saw everything happening in our world. And so I wanted to make sure that things that I was involved with, we can make things better.
They created a new position, and KENDRA was named Nardin's first ever Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Opportunity.
In the business of education, what we are trying to do, we're building leaders. And we know that that starts really at the elementary school level.
Right now, her office focuses on high schoolers, but she says this new program had to start somewhere.
We make sure that we are living through our values of embracing all, living through service and faith. And then also, too, we want to make sure that our students and our girls become champions of equity and justice.
And she says one of the biggest messages that she tries to send is that diversity is about more than simply skin color.
We're looking at diversity in thought, right? We're looking at religion, we're looking at gender. There's so many ways to look at it. And so just having those relationships, those critical relationships and building trust is where I always start. And so this year has really just been listening to our constituents, listening to our alum, and just making sure that we are making our hallways very inclusive. I always say diversity is easy, right? Inclusivity is something that's intentional, and that's something that requires a huge culture shift.
When I spoke with people about Black American Sign Language, they said it was like ASL, but with a little more seasoning. And there are a few distinct differences between the two languages. For instance, ASL may use the entire torso for signing, whereas in BASL, a lot of the signing will focus on the upper chest and the face area. And even individual words will look a little different. For instance, in ASL, this is hurt. In Black American Sign Language, this is hurt. In ASL, this is curious. In BASL, this is curious. And those are just a few of the distinct differences. But I found that the history behind Black American Sign Language is just as rich as the language itself.
Take a look at this sign language TikTok video. The woman in this video is Nakia Smith, and you may notice she's not using standardized ASL. Nakia is using Black American Sign Language, and along with other users on the TikTok app, she's bringing attention to an often overlooked part of Black history.
You think at the end of the Civil War, over 100 years ago, and people are just starting to learn about it.
Dr. Hill is a linguistic professor and dean at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He's been working for years to help preserve Black American Sign Language. He says, like many things in Black history and culture, Black ASL was born out of necessity.
So Black deaf people who were living in the South didn't really attend school. Even though there were white deaf schools, Black deaf children were forbidden from enrolling in them. And so after the Civil War, they did start establishing Black deaf schools. and they were segregated, which meant that there were to be no contact between white and Black deaf people, including the children.
As a result, Black people in the deaf community made their own signs and developed their own language. It's been the subject of research papers, books, and a documentary. Signing Black in America, which Hill makes an appearance in, details the story of Black American Sign Language.
Many of the students would talk about how white ASL was so much better and so much clearer. The books at the white schools were better. So there was this sense that standardized ASL or white ASL was better than Black ASL.
Which Hill says led to code switching, where Black deaf people would primarily use standardized ASL in public and Black ASL in private, or sometimes not at all. Now, viral videos like this one by Nakia Smith are pushing Black American Sign Language back into the spotlight. Other TikTok users like Andre or DJ DefTunes are doing the same. Dr. Hill says it's users like them that are preserving the language, and he hopes the momentum will prompt real understanding and change for people of color in the deaf community.
Coming up on Community, it's time to eat. We'll go inside a local restaurant, but there's also a concern about food deserts.
One of the biggest things that was hurting my community was food.
All right, welcome back to Community, and you know us, at least part of this show has got to be all about the food.
Soul food, I love it. Good for the soul. We go inside of a restaurant, a soul food restaurant. They have fried ribs. Check it out. We are inside of the Park Vue Soul Food Restaurant. This place is historic in Buffalo, right? It's the old
Sharp Schiller Park restaurant.
Why did two women, mother and daughter, decide to do a restaurant? Because you have your own careers.
We wanted to rejuvenate the neighborhood and bring back this place, and it was a sore eye. But once we finally got it, we came down here. Me and my mom and my stepdad, we put the floors down ourselves. We did drywall. November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Restaurant Impossible was here, and they did a total makeover for us. It was the most amazing experience.
This mother-daughter team are at the end of their rope.
What are your specialties?
Our specialty is our fried haddock fish and our fried ribs. They fly out the door. It's our macaroni and cheese, our spicy green beans. We rock the kitchen by ourselves most times.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us. Yesterday it was just the two of us. I have two hobbies that I'm fortunate to get paid for. She has two hobbies that she's fortunate to get paid for. I don't get tired when I'm here. I don't get tired when I'm at the bank. And she loves her students. When we cook, we're in there dancing, we're in there singing, and we're having fun. We're enjoying what we're doing. So it truly is from the soul. And we need someplace affordable for people in the community to come.
I'm a proud graduate of Buffalo Prep and the Nichols School and UB Law School. And one of the biggest things that was hurting my community was food, what you eat. When you look at who has the most diabetes, hypertension, stroke, heart attacks, there are folks who look like me, and they're in my community. There's a dearth of good, healthy food readily available in the community within walking distance. Couple that with the fact that people have an extreme lack of transportation. So you have poor health. To fix that health, you need good food, but you can't get to the good food. And if you can get to the good food, you can't afford the good food. I got the idea and I started pitching it to everybody. Anyone who would listen to me. Hey, we need a co-op. Hey, we need a co-op. We try to get as much as we can from local growers. We opened a location in Niagara Falls. We also have a building here in Buffalo, 238 Carlton. And now we're gonna go in there and start doing all the work we need to create a community-owned grocery in the heart of the Fruit Belt.
How huge is that to bring a grocery store to the heart of the Fruit Belt, where it's essentially a food desert in parts of Niagara Falls and in the Fruit Belt?
There are people there, and whenever there are people, there's value. And we are honored to be in these neighborhoods so folks can walk to the grocery store, be hired in the grocery store, but not only be hired, manage, own it, operate it. The co-op works best when it's in the community, hiring the folks and the residents in the community, and using the local farms. Last year, for 2020, we fed approximately 400,000.
Up next on Community, this man, he's Jerry Livingston. He is a local bass player. So many people love him, not just for his bass playing, but for his humility. But it's the music that we're going to focus in on. Stay with us. If you don't know the name, you may have heard him jam in person or on a recording. Jerry Livingston is one of the most highly respected bass players in Western New York.
I started taking it serious at around 30 years old, I'll say.
Before that,
I consider myself a trombone player trying to play bass.
He's an awesome horn arranger and trombone player.
he and Kenny Hawkins played and toured with Rick James and so many others.
Stephanie Mills, Mickey Howard, Lamel Hewins and all of us, our family.
And the Mary Jane Girls, processing do-rags.
His bass playing crosses genres.
I'm just like a simple, plain guy.
But it's the humility of the man that has musicians coming together.
Always been one of the most gracious and I don't need to mention talented people.
Robbie Takak of the Goo Goo Dolls.
He's been an inspiration to all of us.
I'm trying to keep from getting choked up because this is kind of overwhelming right now. But I'm just glad that I can try to do it. God just requires our best. And that's all I try to do in life is do my best.
Less than 6 months ago, Livingston was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was his wife who noticed a change.
And she saw in my eyes that I was jaundiced. Yellow, she said everything was yellow.
It was caught early. He's already had chemotherapy, and on April 14th, he had a special Whipple surgery to give him more years on Earth. The surgery was a success, according to his wife. He wanted to tell his story beforehand.
If it's going to help somebody, I'll be more than proud to have the courage to step up.
Livingston taught music at Villa Maria College. Megan Clark now lives in Houston, was his student as a teen in Kenmore.
I'll never forget, I went into lessons and he had 2 guitar cases sitting up on the wall. And I said to him, "Why do you have 2 guitar cases today?" And he said, "That one's for you." And I was like, what? For me? Like little old me? Having him in my life then and having those guitar lessons and having that escape of my bass was so fundamental to my personal growth and how I got to where I am today. And as a PA, working in medicine and helping people, Jerry is totally a part of that.
And she inspired me, and I'm proud of her.
I'm still in awe of Jerry.
He started off being my bass idol, but over the years he became more of someone I want to model my life after.
That's Brian from GCR Audio. They put together a GoFundMe.
You know, he's the nicest guy in the world. You know, and that's a cliche that's often used, but with Jerry, it's really not hyperbole.
Jerry, man, you know, hang in there, man. We're gonna finish that record soon.
What makes him so good? I mean, there are a few out there that are really good, but there's Jerry Livingston.
If you didn't know what music was and know how powerful it was, when you hear Jerry, you'll say, wow. And he can just be messing around on the bass, and you'll turn around and look and say, oh, I want to do that.
And simply put, he's the best.
I thank you for the love and support.
And one of the many in that close musical family who has Jerry in his thoughts and in his heart is Andrew Case.
But most importantly, he's a lovely human being. You know, Jerry When you meet him, you feel like you've known him forever.
He's had the pleasure of performing with Jerry, but says even if he hadn't, it is still someone he has a connection to who is battling.
And it hurts so much. And so when someone's fighting, you know, you do whatever you can to get behind that person, to support that person, to let them know that we're with you.
Andrew knows something about the battle. When he's not on the stage, he's a physician's assistant, and he's also part of another huge close-knit family, the hockey community. He was one of the original 40 players in the 11-day power play who broke a world record for the longest hockey game, but more importantly, raised more than $1 million to fight cancer, a number that over the past 4 years of the event has grown to more than $5 million.
I mean, being a part of this community as well as the music community is just so extraordinary because you know you're part of creating hope. You know that if you come from your heart and you raise money for cancer research for Roswell, but you make connections with people who are hurting because they suffered loss, or they're fighting the disease, or they have a brother or sister or mom or dad that are struggling with it. You know that you're doing something special. You're doing something that's organic to Buffalo.
And he's preparing to play in this year's 11-day hockey game this November as well because it means so much. Dollars raised go to Roswell, Camp Good Days, Make-A-Wish, and Oshai Children's Hospital, directly impacting the lives of those impacted by cancer, like he has been. It's emotional when you're out there, isn't it?
It really is. You think about those who are fighting the disease of cancer, and you think about those who you've lost. I've lost family members, 3 family members that stay in my heart, you know, and I know that I share that with many other people in the Buffalo community who feel the same way. And you laugh together, you cry together, you skate together, but you know you're making a difference, and you know you're doing something special because you know you're creating hope.
The numbers speak for themselves. $5.2 million raised, 320 kids sent to camp, 100 wishes granted, and $3.5 million going directly to Roswell research and wellness programs. A lot of support for people in need, but as Drew says, that's what we do in the 716.
When we put it together through the 11-day, through the music community, it's just so special, and I think it's just makes us that much more proud to be part of the city, part of this community.
Such a powerful message, and we are all one community, whether you're talking about the sports community, the music community, and cancer is something that we as a community can pull together and fight.
And that's what community is all about. Not only do we celebrate individuals on this show, we also tackle issues and we want to inform you. So listen to the music, and at the very end, you will see some information if you know someone who is battling pancreatic cancer. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month.